Hello everyone, welcome once again to the Feathers Creations, and this is a channel on YouTube, a sewing channel on YouTube, and I teach how to draft, I teach how to cut, I teach how to sew. Generally we'll talk about sewing and fashion as a whole. Please, if this is the first time of coming across my channel, please do me the favor of subscribing and clicking on the notification bell so that you can get updated whenever I upload a new sewing video. Now, to my subscribers, I love you once again. Thanks for being a pillar of support. You have been good, you've been lovely. Without you, there's no defenders. I keep saying that. And please like, share, comment on my videos, ask questions, tell me your video suggestions, and let me work towards making them available. Let me work towards uploading them. Please talk to me in the comment section. Don't forget to give my videos a thumbs up, and I have made a vow to keep uploading impactful and meaningful videos which would benefit everyone. Now, this is the concluding part of the tutorial of the video on how to cut a two-layered dress for a girl, a two-tiered dress for a girl. Now we have the basic, we've drafted the bodies, it's ready. All we have to do is to draft the skirt, and the skirt is going to be 2 layers, a 360-degree flare, which would be the long skirt. It would now have another on it, and the layer it would have on it would be a full flare in pleats as well. So now we'll go into the cutting of the skirt, because we'll start with how to cut the long skirt, and we are going to add net to this as well. Look at it, medium textured net to give it a kind of a bounce. It's medium textured. So I have folded my fabric. I folded my fabric, which will be used to cut my flare. See, it's in 4. I folded in 4. Look at it. I folded in 4. Look at it. Please look at it. This is the fabric. I folded and ironed neatly in 4 using the measurements I derived. I didn't just fold. I used the measurements I derived to fold so that I won't waste my fabrics. So this is the folded fabric. Folded in 2, then folded in 2 again. Now, so the measurements proper. The length of the gown we used then for the bodies is 26. I used a bodice length of 9. Now, 26 minus 9 will have 17. 17 is the length of the skirt. Our waist circumference, the one I ended up using, is 20. How do you get your 360-degree circle flare? You just add your zip allowance, because this gown is going to have zip. I'm going to provide for zip. You add 2 inches for zip, and that would give us 22. Please add 2 inches to your waist circumference to get 22. Now, this 22 would be divided by 6.28 to get the radius, which will be used in cutting the circle. Now, what did I get after dividing 22 by 6.23? I got 3.5 something. I used 3.5. Now, that 3.5 would be added to the length of my skirt. Don't forget that I said the entire length of the gown is 26. So the actual length of the skirt here is 17. 3.5 plus 17, you have 20.5. 20.5, I added 1 inch for finishing at the tip of the circle. I added 1 inch for finishing. It depends on what you want to do anyway. I'm adding 1 inch for finishing. I have 21 and a half. If by the time I fold my fabric, I would have 21 and a half in 2 places for both the width and the length. What it means is that 21 and a half times 2 would be 43. I would have to fold my fabric in at least 43 by 43. I would cut my fabric 43 by 43, so that by the time I fold in two, I would have 21.5. So it's as simple as that. That is just how to get your fold. Now you can see this is even a little more than, this is a little more than 21 and a half, a bit more than 21 and a half. You see? Good. Now on this side I have more than 21 and a half as well, because this is the entire length of the Ankara fabric. Okay, so there was no reason for me to cut that off, since it's just not much. Now what will I do? I'll just go ahead to input 3.5. 3.5. How did I derive 3.5? I added my waist circumference. I added 2 inches to it. I divided everything by 6.28, since it's going to be the 360-degree circle flare. Don't forget that I said I added 2 inches for zip. Now I'm marking my 3.5 here, my 3.5 here, my 3.5 here as well. So this is it. So this is what 3.5 looks like. Now, like I said, the length of the skirt is 21.5. Don't forget I included my seam allowance. From the edge here, for accuracy, you can mark from the edge here. Can you see? Can you see? From the edge, just mark your 21 and a half all round. Mark 21 and a half all round. This skirt is what you are going to attach to your bodies. You are going to cut them separately. Your skirts, you cut separately. You cut your bodies separately. And that we have done. I would put the link in the description box so that everyone can see where I started the tutorial from. So this is my 21 and a half all round. Please ensure you mark correctly, because any mistake will be noticed. And the rule of sewing is measure twice, cut once. That's just the simple rule of sewing. Measure twice, cut once. Now this is it. So now this is where the 18 ends. You can see I have my 18 intact. That's your 18, the length of the skirt plus the seam allowance. Now at the point of cutting, you don't use that value. You just come here. You don't cut from here, rather. You go upwards by half an inch to get your accurate skirt measurement, as in the width here, so that it won't be wider than. So you are going to connect. You are going upwards by half. This is going to be the seam allowance to join your bodies to your skirt. Can you get it? Now, do you get it rather? So you join your bodies to your skirt this way. So it's as simple can be. So let me keep this aside, or better still, I can cut it at once. I'll need to repeat the same process for the lining. But the thing with the lining is that it's not going to be as long as your skirt. It's going to be at least, in this case, I want it to be at least maybe 2 inches shorter than my skirt. And with the lining, I don't need to provide for seam allowance for the lining, like for finishing. You know, here I provided for finishing. But in the case of the lining, I won't provide for finishing. It will just be that exact 3.5 radius and 16-inch lining. That is if I still want the one of 16 inches. Please be careful when cutting your fabric. Like I keep saying, you can't undo the mistakes you make. So this is what it's going to look like. Afterwards, I'll go on to cut here. You understand? I'll cut this side later. So let me keep this aside. This is going to be the skirt of our outfit. Now for the lining itself. This is the lining according to, I used my measurements. I've ironed and folded it as well. You can see it's the same lining I used for the upper, for the bodies. So make sure they are the same. Don't use different things. They tend to, it won't look funny if the lining for the bodies differs from the lining for the skirt. I mean in color. It won't look nice. Now I'm going to mark the same 3.5 radius I used for the body, the skirt itself. And like I said, I could choose to use 16 for my lining because I want it to be maybe 2 inches shorter than the gown itself. Now look at it. 2 inches means 16 plus 3.5. That's going to be 19. I hope you can see what I'm doing. This is 19.5. I added the radius to the length of my lining, and I'm going to mark from here as well. I'm taking my time to show you the step-by-step process because most of the time skirts for kids usually involves circles. So that's why I'm taking my time to show you how to cut. Now for the net, I would use this same radius for the net and the length, but the length would even be shorter than that of the lining. And why is that so? There is no need for the net to be as long as the lining. There's no need. Why? The net is uncomfortable on the skin. Even though it's not the hardest, it is still a medium textured, but it's uncomfortable for the skin. If it touches your skin, you don't like the effect. It's quite, it's rough. It's a bit rough. So that's why I won't use, I don't need my lining to be as long. I don't need that net to be as long as my lining. It's just to give it bounce, a little bounce to make it fuller. That's why we use the net. See, I did what I did for the first. I came upwards so that I don't reduce the length of, so that I don't widen the circle, and as well I'm providing for seam allowance. I hope you can see what I'm doing clearly, please. Don't forget we are making a 2-tiered skirt for a girl, a 2-layered skirt for a girl. And this is the Feathers Creations. And please, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe and click on the notification bell. Now come here at this point and cut out. So this is it. This is the lining piece, and you also have your circle intact here. You can see this is your 360-degree circle. So I'll put that aside as well. Now I don't know whether, I don't see any reason why I don't want to cut this net, because it's going to take the same process and I don't want to waste time. So you just have to cut your net the same way you cut your fabric and lining piece. The only difference would be that the net would not be as long as your lining, and your net would be on top of your lining. Look at it. This is your lining. This is your net. At the point of sewing, your net will be on top of your lining and your fabric will be on top of the net. Can you see? That is, the net will be in between your lining and fabric. At the point of sewing, your net will be in between your lining and fabric. Use the same radius to cut the neck length. And in this case, I would use 14 for my neck. Use the radius to cut your neck, your flare, and measure maybe 14 inches for the length of the net itself. So So that is just that about the net. Now to the upper layer, the other circle. As you can see, I have this unfold as well. I ironed it out, folded it neatly in 4, just like I did for the circle. Now the beauty of this, or the difference, is that I'm going to pleat this portion. It's going to be on top of the skirt. It's going to be in pleats, and I need to measure my circumference. That's our waist circumference. I would have to add more to that waist circumference. I multiplied the waist circumference by 2.5. That is our waist circumference of 20 inches. I just multiplied it by 2.5 straight, and I divided it by 6.28. It's no big deal. I just want pleats for it. And I decided to multiply a waist of 20 by 2.5. That gave me 50. I went ahead to divide the 50 by 6.28, and I have 7.96 as the radius. Now, I want a length of 5.5. The actual should be 5.5. I added half to it for seam because I would line it. So I need half for sewing the lining to the body, to the fabric itself. That's why I have 6 here. Can you see? So that 7.5 plus 6 would give me 13.96. Can you see? So 13.96 would be the entire length right from this edge. 13.96. Let's say 14. Now, let's measure to see whether I have that value. Don't forget that I folded mine. Look at it. I am sure I have 13.96. You can see I have 13.96. And because it's going to be in pleats, any mistake here can be catered for. That is, if your flare ends up being longer than the actual, or being wider here, you can pleat it in. That's because it's pleats. But if you don't want any pleats, don't create room for excess. So now 7.96. Okay, to be somewhere here. So I iron my fabric using my exact measurement, using the measurements I derived. Now, I could go ahead to use 8, and I can go ahead to use, well, 7.75. So let me use 7.75 here. By using 7.75, I reduced just a bit. Look at it. See how wide it is. Okay. So I'm going to pleat it. We're going to have to pleat. 7.75. 7.75. Don't forget, this is the top layer. It's going to sit on the fabric, the long skirt, and the long skirt will sit on the net, and the net would in turn sit on the lining. Okay, so it's as simple as that. Now, the 6 inches required, let me measure that out as well. This is 6 inches. Can you see? If there's any excess, I'll incorporate to make it a bit longer, but there's no need. I have my exact 6 inches here. This 6 inches. You can measure from here, you know, like I said earlier, you can measure from here. The 7 point, look at it, this is 7.5. We use this, just add 6 to it, and you have 13.75. 13.75. Can you see? So 13.75. Mark 13.75. Be careful, please. 13.75. You can see that this circle is wider. I just want to pleat it. I want it to be in pleats. 13.75. Make sure your 6 is there. And that 6 includes what? Your seam allowance at the edge here, because it's going to be lined. So connect. Please be accurate. Every mistake will show. Any mistake would show. So can you see? It's going to be a 2-layered skirt. Now you come here, go in just like we did before by half of an inch, by half of an inch, by half of an inch. I'm trying my best possible to make this video beginner friendly, easy for somebody who doesn't even have a lot of knowledge on sewing. At least if you watch it, if you can measure well and you can sew neatly, you should be able to get what I'm doing. So look at it. Now at the point of cutting, I'm coming here as usual. Now I said something earlier, and that is the fact that this will be in pleats and it will be on top of the skirt. So by the time I open this skirt up, open this circle skirt up, you realize that I'm not cutting out ordinary fabric. Can you see? I'm not cutting out ordinary fabric. Before folding this outfit, before folding this fabric in four, I ironed my interfacing to it, my fusible interfacing. Fusible interfacing, that's the one you bond to your cloth with and iron. That's why this thing is thick. Can you see? It's not soft, it's not easy to cut. That's why it's thick, because of the fusible interfacing I ironed to it. I bond it to it with a iron. I use a very hot iron, a hot iron rather. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to cut, and I'm going to pleat afterwards. So this detailed video, I want to believe, has been of good help to you. So now this is the lining piece, and this is the lining piece. I'm going to notch. I'll come here, I'll notch it. Can you see? So that I can know where the center is. I'll come here, I'll slit it open. And this is the skirt, the top layer. Look at what I did to it. See? I interfaced it. So I'll simply notch and slit as well. Please, if you have found my tutorial meaningful, do click on the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that you can get notified whenever a new video is uploaded. Once again, this is Difeda's Creations on YouTube, and thank you for watching and subscribing. Bye.